Hello, and welcome to the Developer Preview Live as part of the Release Readiness Live series. My name is Arabella David, and I'm a Senior Director here at Salesforce for Global Developer Marketing. And I'm so excited to share the latest about what's new in the Summer 19 release here with you all. Before we get started, here's what you've been waiting for. It's the forward-looking statement. So during this broadcast, we might speak about some forward-facing features that are in pilot or beta. But please remember to make all of your implementation, purchasing, and investment decisions based on what is generally available now. While we're presenting, we'd love to hear from you. So if you go to the next slide, if you have any questions, you can post your questions to Twitter using @SalesforceDevs and using the hashtag SalesforceLive. We'll try to answer as many questions as possible right here, right now, while we have the experts here in the room. But if we can't get to them now in this broadcast, we'll answer them as soon as we can afterwards. And if you missed anything, we'll have the recording of this lovely panel available online later today. So in this session, we'll be focusing on release features that are of particular interest if you're developing on the Salesforce platform and using code, or if you're an admin who's comfortable with some coding. So without further ado, I'd love to have the panel introduce themselves today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rodolfo Ergueta, and I'll be giving a sneak peek of our blockchain product.
Good morning. My name is John, and I'm going to be talking about platform events and change data capture.
Hello, my name is Diego Ferreiro Val, and I'm going to be talking about the awesomeness of Lightning Web Components.
And hi, my name is Heather Dykstra, and I'm going to be giving a couple of demos today on Lightning Web Components open source, and then also custom mobile notifications, as well as a little bit of some updates on our CLI.
All right. So I guess I'll get us started. Last week at Trailhead DX, we had some really important announcements around blockchain, and we got a lot of great feedback, a lot of great questions. And what I thought I would do is perhaps talk about a couple of things to introduce you to the topic of blockchain at Salesforce. So first, we'll talk a little bit about what's blockchain and why does it matter. Second, we'll talk a little bit about what Salesforce brings to the blockchain party, so to speak. And then I'll end with a brief demo to try to bring it all home and show you guys some of the features that we are very proud of. So let's get started then. So blockchain, what is it? This question came up many times over. At its core, you can think about blockchain as a database that saves and traces data in a way that's distributed, verified, and secure. Let's actually double click on each one of those because it's really important to understand this to move forward, right? So what does it mean to be distributed? So when you think about your own companies, and you will frequently hear people talk about the source of truth. What is the source of truth? Who owns the source of truth, right? When you're talking about networks and partnerships, and in the world of blockchain, that concept actually gets replaced by this concept of a collective source of truth. So all the network participants, all the partners actually have a copy of that ledger, a copy of that data. And that's why we say that it's distributed. Everyone has access to that. Now, the second one is really important as well, right? So everyone has a copy. Can I just add transactions to it willy-nilly? Well, no, we can't. That's where the verification comes into place, right? And depending on the setup, use case, et cetera, it may be that all the participants need to approve and verify a transaction, or it may be a few of them. You may have heard of the term consensus mechanism. That's what's underlying that. And finally, we say that it's secure. So if you think about blockchain, it literally is blocks of data that get appended over time, right? So one block gets appended to the next, to the next. So it's an append-only database in some ways, right? So the way that this gets secured is with cryptographic hashes. You attach each of the blocks, and that ensures that no one can tamper with them going forward. So we talked a little bit about what the underlying mechanisms are. But what this really allows is for companies to share data in a trusted and transparent way that really wasn't available before. And that's where we'll get into the next conversation here. So we know that customers are hyper-connected, and they have access to incredible services and experiences. And it's phenomenal, right? But at the same time, when you zoom out and you look at the cross-company experience, that is still very much siloed, right? Just think about how many logins do you have today. That's just a brief example of how that silo effect kind of gets reflected on all of us, right? So the reason for that is that companies don't have a way to communicate with each other, to trust what data to share, to pass off right at the connection points, at the transfer points, at moments of truth. So all of that kind of like causes clunkiness in this overall experience. And we believe that the next iteration of networks, of partnerships, and of experiences is actually going to be brought on by the rise of trust networks. And these are networks where companies can easily and scalably share data and information in real time with partners and other network participants. And we truly believe that blockchain is that architectural layer, that connective tissue that allows all these companies to come together in this way. So that's why it matters. Now, Salesforce, as I mentioned, we had a big announcement last week. And there's a few key features that we wanted to bring to the table. One of the reasons that it's very hard for blockchain technology companies to take off is that it's hard. It's hard to build these networks, maintain them, etc. So what Salesforce is doing is addressing three key, among other things, I should say, is addressing three key features and three key components. Number one, we want to make it easy, right? So building with clicks, not code. We really have put a lot of effort. Our engineering teams have been working really hard on this aspect so that it's very easy to adopt, right? Secondly, and related to that, is the fact that this is embedded in the Lightning platform. So once you have built your network and your partnerships, now the services like search, AI, flow, bots, all of that is ready for you to use. So the time to value from blockchain to business ROI is much shortened, right? And finally, we want to make sure that partners are engaging easily, because onboarding, as we mentioned, this is all about networks. Onboarding is very important. So lots of attention on the UX, UI, and also on APIs to make sure that whatever form or whatever the need is for a partner to communicate and collaborate on the blockchain, that's available to them. So with that, let's bring it home, and I'll do a quick demo. And I'll set the stage very quickly. What we're looking at here is a blockchain network that was created by Big Events Entertainment, if you can see that here. And they are the founding member of the network. And you see here BlockNext Ticketing and Ticket Paradise, and those are partners of theirs. They're resellers of their tickets. They put on concerts and they sell tickets effectively. Right? Now, they want to solve two problems. Number one is that once a ticket is sold, and if it gets resold many times over, they lose track of who the end client is or who the concert attendee is. So they want to figure out how to address that issue. The other one is the problem around hoarding tickets. So a lot of times people will go and buy in bulk and then resell them at exorbitant prices, and that ruins the experience for the concert goers, completely sidelines some concert goers, some fans. So those are the problems that they're trying to solve, and that's why they built this network. Now, let's get on a little bit deeper here. And as you can see, once they built the network, they said, okay, so how are we going to declare what data are we going to be tracking on the blockchain, right? So what you see here is distributed objects, which are very similar to custom objects in Salesforce. And as you see here, this Big Events Ticketing developed this data model, actually, right, for the blockchain. And this is a really important piece. When you look at blockchain, if you look at Solidity or something like that, right, declaring variables can be time-consuming, testing, all that, right? And we do that declaratively here, which is amazing. And not only that, as you can see here, we're defining the fields that are being created in the blockchain. But at the same time, and this is critical, we are creating relationships among these objects that we're building, right? So in a way, this data model, you're able to create a data model for the blockchain with clicks and not code, which again is something really, really powerful, and it can take a lot of effort to do otherwise. So now you have your network, you have your data, right? Let's infuse some business logic into this. So as I mentioned, here we're using Flow Builder, by the way. And as I mentioned, one of the things that they wanted to solve for was the fact that there are people that are hoarding tickets and then reselling them, right, for crazy prices. So what they're saying here is, okay, this ticket, we're going to put a limit. You cannot sell it for more than 115. Let's say that we sold it for 100, right? And on top of that, we're going to say that you can't resell the ticket more than 3 times. Right? And this looks pretty normal logic for all of us, right? When you're doing flows, etc. But we need to take a pause here because this is innovative. This is different, right? So, and not for us necessarily, but for our customers, right? So effectively what you've done is you've taken a quote unquote dumb ticket, right? A paper ticket that had one function, which was to let you into a concert hall. And now you've infused it with logic. You've told the ticket, you know what? These are the things that you can and can't do. So you have a smart ticket, you have a programmable ticket, right? And that's the power of blockchain, and that's the power of Salesforce, that you can reimagine things as basic as what a ticket is in this manner, right? And we're really, we have a lot of ideas. We hear a lot of ideas from our partners and customers, and we can't wait to hear from our developers as well as this evolves. We are very happy and excited to hear from you. Arabella, that's it.
I think people are excited to ask you questions. We've got a couple of them already. So we've got one here from Squire Kirshner. Hey, Squire. Good to see you're watching the show. So his question is, or statement really, is the greatest challenge that we've had with blockchain so far is not the tech, but the use case and explaining how it can help our company. Is there non-techie documentation available to help us translate blockchain to our leadership?
So if I'm understanding the question correctly, the question is, how can we come up with a use case that uniquely leverages blockchain features and blockchain technology? That's kind of like what I'm hearing.
Not to project too much because I'm not wired enough now, but I think basically, how do you translate blockchain into like simple business everyday language? Right? So I'm saying that.
To be honest, I think that it's a bit of art and science, right? There are things that are distinct in terms of when you look at a blockchain use case, right? So even when you're trying to think of the requirements, right, you need to think about not only, who's doing what in my company, but who are my network partners? Why are they going to join the network? Just because I build it doesn't mean that they'll come, right? What are the behaviors that I want to incent in that network, et cetera, et cetera. So it's definitely an art and a science. There's no kind of like playbook of here's how you go from step 1 to step 10. And those are the conversations that we welcome having with our customers and partners, because that's where the ideation comes into play. I wish I had a better, more cookbook answer, but that's what we've experienced at least.
And I'm sure we can talk about what we can put on the website or what we can make available, working together with our community to make something available for everybody.
Yeah.
So great. So
Perfect.
Thank you for that. We have another question. Squire, I hope that answered your question. We have another question here from Fernando Sousa. His question is, will blockchain have an SDK to synchronizing different nodes? Can this be synced out of the Salesforce environment? So the intent we're having those conversations, and it's part of the roadmap discussions that we're having. So the short answer is yes. It's a matter of when, in terms of outside nodes versus inside nodes, et cetera. Okay. Great, and I'm sure everybody will be eager to hear when there's more news on that one. So I have another question here from the community. Is Salesforce using an existing blockchain protocol, or is Salesforce building from the ground up?
Good question. So we're actually leveraging Hyperledger Sawtooth to build to build on top of. Hyperledger Sawtooth, for those who don't know, is part of the Hyperledger is part of the Linux Foundation, and this is an open source project that we're leveraging, and we're definitely, we're leveraging it, but we're also adding a lot of, Salesforce magic, I would say, to that.
I love how Salesforce is being a good citizen when it comes to open source. So much noise has been made about Lightning Web Components being open source, but we should make a much bigger deal about this as well, right? So,
right.
Great. next question. Always we get this kind of question. Can I buy this product?
Yes. So.
Call your AE today.
Right. I love those calls. No, so right now this is a sneak peek, right? So we are in closed beta. We have 5 design partners that we're working with. We anticipate to have a proof of concept more open for Dreamforce timeframe, and then GA won't be until next year, actually.
Okay. The next question, how would I get into this pilot? Is what I imagine a lot of people are asking right now.
Right. Yeah. So the way that this works is generally companies will work with their AEs to engage in those initial conversations and figure out what the best path forward is.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I guess the answer, you were right, talk to your AE. But for the people who don't have AEs to get started with this, like if I'm just if I'm just wanting to kick the tires and explore, what's the best place for me as a developer to go to get started?
So today that unfortunately is not available openly. So it will probably more be around, as I mentioned earlier, the Dreamforce timeframe.
Okay.
Thereabouts proof. Yeah.
I would just add that there's some great Trailheads. I knew
Trailhead
nothing
modules.
about blockchain before, but
Right.
I went to Trailhead and I got my hands on some blockchain concepts and some Salesforce magic. So
Yeah. No, that's
there.
absolutely, you're spot on. I
Good
think.
catch.
Yeah. No, totally. So to get started, my head directly went into how do I start coding this, but yeah, to get started, there's many ways, and Trailhead I think is probably the best option. Also, we have salesforce.com/blockchain, and we have a host, a lot of information there. We also have some of the partners that actually presented at Trailhead. Some of their use cases are showcased there.
There was a super session that happened at Trailhead DX
Correct.
as well on blockchain, and that's available to watch on Salesforce Live. And we also have a great trail mix that was made from the opening keynote about blockchain. And if I recall correctly, it might be sforce.com/blockchain. So blockchain, all the things, all of the URLs, just like start throwing blockchain on them, and you'll find
Google
something.
Salesforce and blockchain. You'll be good.
Great. So I think there's a question here. This app, like the app that you showed for the demo, like can developers get their hands on this or play around with it at all?
Unfortunately, same answer as previously, yeah.
Well,
I know. We're really excited. We really want you guys to get your hands on it. Yeah.
oh, here's a question. How does consensus in blockchain work?
Yeah, so we use a few different types of consensus, and that's the good thing. One of the reasons why we wanted to explore Sawtooth. There's different ways to do consensus, right? So I can get it more technical, but there's, POET and Raft consensus is generally what Sawtooth uses. Bitcoin uses the Nakamoto consensus. There's different types. So this is not a proof of work consensus, so it's much more energy efficient. And it really depends on what the appropriate consensus is for the network type, for the use case, et cetera.
Okay, well, thank you for that. So I think it's about time to move on to John's topic. But if you do have further questions on blockchain, just feel free to keep tweeting us at Salesforce Devs or using the hashtag Salesforce Live. And if we have time at the end of this presentation, we'll try to squeeze in as many extra questions for Rodolfo here as possible. Or you can save them for the webinar that's coming up in a few weeks. So I think, John, are you ready to take it away for your part?
I am ready.
Great.
So it was a great intro. Thanks, Rodolfo. The blockchain product is actually built on platform events, so really excited that platform events are a crucial component for our external developers, but also our internal developers. And we launched platform events about 1.5 years ago as a first-class Salesforce object, deeply integrated into the platform that allows you to publish and subscribe events from APACs, from platform APIs, from declarative flow tools. And these are really a crucial building block in building event-driven architectures and event-driven apps. With high-volume platform events that we GA'd in the spring release, we now support a new level of scale. So we support tens of millions of events per day per org. So all these interesting high-volume use cases we now are very anxious to see you onboard onto and start getting value out of for your customers and your companies. Additionally, I do want to emphasize that with the GA in Spring 19, we made platform events available to all orgs that have API access. So there was some confusion around Trailhead DX about, is high volume platform events an add-on? Is it a paid feature? But I just want to emphasize that it's available in all orgs. You definitely have some runway to get started, start using it in production scenarios. You can start in Scratch orgs, move it to DE orgs or sandboxes, and then deploy to production. So a few of the summer features that I want to highlight, the first being the #1 feature request from all of you, our great developers using platform events, is a new publish behavior semantic. This new semantic is publish after commit. So today, platform events are published non-transactionally to our event log. But for a number of use cases, you want to publish events inside or from a transaction. And you want to publish that signal that represents the data being updated in that transaction. If we publish that signal as we do today outside, then if the transaction rolls back, that event has still been published and you need to reconcile the event with the transaction rollback. That's very non-trivial. And so what we heard from you is that we needed to make this easier. So that's what we did in Summer 19. We've added a new publish behavior option called after commit. And you can do a edit on any existing definition or any new definition that you create and change that publish behavior to after commit. When you do that, the platform event will only be published after the transaction commits successfully. So you can ensure that when you receive that event, the transaction's committed and the data is available for you to query or manipulate from that point forward. The next thing I want to discuss is around Apex platform event triggers. A very common use case is to use on-platform processing for Apex and platform events. And we knew that handling error conditions and limit exceptions was quite challenging. So we added the set resume checkpoint option into the platform event trigger framework. And this allows you to granularly control the replay IDs for the events that you've processed. So as you're processing, you can checkpoint the replay IDs that you process. And then any exception or limit exception or malfunction in your code that causes a rollback or a execution context to end, that will not prevent your events from being processed in the future. So the next execution context comes along and it processes from that last event that you checkpointed. So a great way to control batch sizes, because today you can receive up to 2,000 events in one execution. That is quite challenging to deal with, but now with set resume checkpoint, you can control those batch sizes much more granularly. The third thing that's very related to Diego's topic is LWC and empAPI compatibility with LWC. So we built the empAPI Aura Lightning component to receive events, platform events, or change data events in your UIs to create these next-gen experiences for your end users. And we've now made this LWC compatible, so any LWC app or LWC component that needs to interact with platform events can be done by simply using this brand new component. It's a seamless upgrade from Aura or Lightning to LWC for empAPI. The signatures are exactly the same, and you can keep using the Lightning component if you are using and depending on it today. The next thing we're going to talk about is change data capture. This was also GA'd in the Spring 19 release, and it is the best way to receive real-time updates about Salesforce data that's being changed in your org. We basically detect at the lowest level of our save logic and in our database all changes to Salesforce data, and we publish a Delta event to this stream as a platform event. So not only can you receive these events to synchronize data in external systems, but maybe you're orchestrating business processes, maybe triggering order fulfillment based off of data being changed in your Salesforce org. Additionally, because it's built on high-volume platform events, we can support the huge scale that I talked about earlier, but also the events are stored for 72 hours. So if your subscribing system happens to go down for maintenance or you need to restart it, you can resume and reprocess those events or receive those events that happened within a 3-day window without risk of losing those data changes that happened. The big feature that we announced that had a lot of excitement around it, Trailhead DX, was asynchronous Apex triggers. It's a brand new concept for the Salesforce platform, and it allows you to now have a transaction be decoupled from the trigger execution. So my transaction can complete, that publishes a change event, and then I can have a trigger on the change event that's running outside the transaction context. This allows me to decouple some of this heavyweight, slow business processing from the transaction. That allows the end users to have a much faster experience, but it also allows me as a developer to have fewer limit concerns, because now I'm moving that slow processing out of the transaction. Additionally, if that processing happens to have an exception or rollback, it's not going to roll back the actual transaction because it's happening in a completely separate context. So when would I use an Apex trigger or an async version of an Apex trigger? Obviously, we're not replacing Apex triggers. That's one of the best features of the Salesforce platform, in my opinion. So keep using transactional triggers if you're doing data validation, data consistency, data integrity, or making updates to related objects that need to be committed in one unit of work. Think about asynchronous Apex triggers when you're doing heavyweight calculations, or maybe you're doing Einstein predictions, or you're creating summaries of data from multiple different objects, or you're joining data between different sources. Do these things that aren't transactionally bound in the asynchronous context so that you have a new set of limits, that you have a decoupling between the transaction and the processing. The final thing that I want to talk about is very exciting, is external change data capture. So just like change data capture detects changes on your Salesforce data, external change data tracking tracks and captures all the changes happening to records in your external systems that you've hooked up using Salesforce Connect. So on the right, you can see we're using the product under X. That's our product external object stored in our external system. We're able to now detect changes on those records in the external system and have a change event be published into the platform so that I can use an asynchronous Apex trigger or our external APIs to receive those change events for external data that's not even in the Salesforce platform in real time. If you have OData 4 and you have Salesforce Connect, you can start using this today, and it's available. And again, no code required to set this up, all clicks. So at this point, before we jump into the Lightning Web Components, I'm going to give a quick overview of change data capture and platform events. So if you haven't seen the screen already, this is the change data capture selection screen. And I'm playing the role of Cody today. He's actually joined us here in studio. And he has created a parts app that tracks his service repair company. So he maintains vehicles, and he's tracking changes on the case object, the part object, and a few others that he's selected. But how is Cody using those case change events? Cody has written an asynchronous Apex trigger on the case change event itself. So you can see here, we're writing this new asynchronous Apex trigger. We do a little boilerplate to collect all the case IDs that are in this batch or this execution. And then Cody is using Einstein and machine learning to predict the status of these accounts associated with the cases. So we're basically determining, is this account in a green or red state? Is the account at risk? Does it need escalation? We basically iterate through, we add these platform events to a list, and then we publish those account signals. So those account signals now are going to trigger other things in the platform. So this is really the heart, the interesting calculation, but then I want to publish signals so that my business analysts, my other developers, the other people in my company can process that signal in a specific way to them. So as an admin, I created a process builder using that red account signal. I receive that red account platform event. I associate it with the account that's been referenced in the event itself. I'm going to always execute this, and I'm going to update the rating of that account to be the rating that we added to the platform event. So again, that signal, very code-oriented publish and calculation, but a very declarative clicks no code way to process it on platform. So let's take a look. We've got an account open here. It's the Astro account. And Astro has called us recently and unfortunately has a part that's malfunctioned. So we're going to go ahead and log a case for this. So we know it's the GD 2000 part. But before I do this, I want to call out that Cloudy is actually the part supplier for Cody. And Cloudy is using a Heroku application to receive change event signals from the org so that they can supply the parts back to Cody whenever we get the notification that a part is requested. So we've subscribed to the change data stream. We're going to save this, and a few things are going to happen. Number one, we're going to receive that real-time CDC event in this external Heroku application subscribed to the event stream. We receive that create event for the case object with that part number that's requested. But then you can also see here, we received an update event for that account object that was referenced by that signal created by the asynchronous apex trigger. We can see the rating field was updated to green because it was not a high priority case. But let's look here. We also got a real-time UI alert that the account is green so that a service agent receives real-time data about the account and how it's changed. Additionally, we have the LWC component added to the utility bar, and you can see here that we're receiving those events in real time. But what happens, unfortunately, Astro has to get back from TDX, and we need to elevate this priority. So this is going to a high priority state, and we're going to save this. So a new calculation is being generated by that asynchronous apex trigger, and we're going to receive a few different updates here. So you can see here we have an update. We're changing the priority of that case to high, and then the update on the account was red status because the rating of the account is now red based on that async apex trigger calculation. You can see here we got a flash, the possible red account alert for Astro for the service agent looking at this account in real time. But additionally, just to prove that this is a real demo, we're going to look at the details page. And you can see here that we did in fact update the rating on the actual account to be red based on that process builder. So again, the asynchronous apex trigger based on change data capture events, calculating a very intense heavyweight computation, creating a prediction about this account, publishing that signal, and then being processed on platform by process builder, but also being received by an LWC component. So a very event-driven, high-scale, high-performance way to architect and think about building apps. So with that, I think that wraps up my demo. So we'll go ahead and pass it over to Diego and talk about.
Wait, hang on.
Oh, too soon.
Here.
Oh, questions.
You're not getting out of it that easily.
I thought I answered all the questions.
Nope, not quite done yet.
Okay.
Well, the reason we're doing this is so people can ask questions. Why?
I'm pretty sure
Okay.
no questions on anything of Apex.
No question. Everything.
Well, the first thing is actually, you're off the hook for a second because the first comment we have on Twitter is actually for Heather. So the Rachel Watson says, hi, she sees you. So I wanted to mention that to you.
Great.
But we do have a question from, the first question we have is from Maggie Longshore. I'm not quite sure if it's a question, so I'll just give this to you and you can help us all with this. After commit for events, thank you.
Oh, yes. Oh, you're welcome. Absolutely. Great. Yes, it's wonderful. No, it is a feature that we heard loud and clear from the Trailblazer community, and there were a number of excited developers when we announced this at Trailhead DX. So I really hope this alleviates some pain points that developers were having to deal with.
Oh, it's great to hear that people were excited about it because I was in the audience for the opening keynote at Trailhead DX, and then when local development did come up, there was just spontaneous applause from the people attending.
Yeah, a lot of excitement around what we've announced in Summer 19.
Great. So speaking of the opening keynote, we do have another question here from a golden hoodie winner named Susanna Kate.
Oh, wonderful.
So hi,
Hello,
good to see you're watching as well. So her question is, are async triggers only available for use with platform events?
So the asynchronous triggers are built on platform events, so either a platform event itself or a change data capture event. If you write an Apex trigger today on the case object, even if it's after insert, as most of us know, that's still executed in the transaction itself. The way that we're decoupling the Apex trigger context and execution from the real DML transaction is by using the event bus and the event queue. Those events are queued up in the bus, and then they're processed asynchronously as the system has resources. And so by definition, that's how the asynchronous Apex triggers are run and the framework that backs them.
Okay, great. So let us know if that answers your question or not, Susanna. And I hope you're keeping warm there in summer, I guess. Well, metaphor holds with that great hoodie. So the next question we have here is change data capture included with our org?
Change data capture is included with your org. You can use it in Scratch orgs, DE orgs, prod, sandbox orgs, and we do allow you to capture up to 5 objects, so changes on 5 different object types. If you need to capture more objects than 5, you're able to add on a license and remove that limit.
Okay, great. I'm sure that's super useful information for everyone here. Speaking of, what are the limits for platform events and for change data capture?
So the limits is a very interesting question and one that our developers know and love. But luckily with high volume platform events, we have very generous limits. So by default, out of the box, you can publish 250,000 events an hour. So just for context, that's 6 million a day. There's not too many use cases at this point that are at that scale quite yet. If you're processing change data events on platform or platform events on platform using Apex triggers or Process Builder and Flow, those don't count against your daily delivery limits. That's included with the platform. That's the value of the features that we deliver each and every release that you don't have to pay extra for. If you're receiving the events off platform, we do meter and have an allocation that's included with your org for these events that are delivered outside the Salesforce platform. But again, that's quite generous to get you started and should be more than enough runway to take on a few of these initial use cases that you have in mind.
Yeah, 6 million. Let's see if people can push to that limit.
And to be clear, that's on the publish side. The delivery side is a little less just because we want to allow you to process on platform at much higher volumes. Really, if we're being transparent, the cost for us is sending the event out. And so that's why that limit for us is more relevant and the lever that we kind of monetize around licensing.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. It was super informative. The next question we have here is how can I subscribe to the event stream?
Great. 3 different ways. On platform, you can use Apex Triggers, Process Builder, or Flow tools. And off platform, you can use our open API. It's built on the Comet D protocol. And there's open source libraries in 5, 6, 7 different languages. So you can run and subscribe to that in real time using the language of your choice, running on Heroku, Amazon, Azure, doesn't matter, on-prem. And then the third way is that MuleSoft, it's now in-house, it has a best-in-class connector. So if you have MuleSoft, you can just turn on the connector, receive events in real time, and distribute those to any of the downstream systems that MuleSoft connects to. But I will say MuleSoft may be best of breed because it's in-house, but a number of our other integration partners also have connectors. So if you're using Dell Boomi, Informatica, Jitterbit, again, this is an open API. It's not proprietary. There's nothing special that MuleSoft is doing other than a best-of-breed investment into the connector itself.
Again, with the open. This is great.
Yes, very much.
One final question before we move on. The last one is, are the limits reset for async Apex trigger executions?
They are, yes. So that's one of the big benefits is that when you have your Apex transaction, your limits are being accrued and being consumed. But then, because the change event is published to the event bus, it's actually a physically separate thread and physically separate execution context when the processing of the async trigger happens. So your limits are totally reset for this new execution.
Okay, great. Thank you. So if there's further questions, again, if we have time at the very end, we'll save them for that. Your team is talking about this, right? This kind of local development soon?
Local development is more on the Lightning web components, OSS, but we have done a number of talks at Trailhead recently on asynchronous Apex triggers and high volume platform events.
Right.
So definitely check those out.
Right.
When the recording is posted.
I think the sessions will be posted really soon.
Yes.
So people can keep an eye out for that. So great. Thank you for that. And then Diego, are you ready to talk about Lightning Web Components?
Of course. All right, Lightning Web Components open source, and you don't have to talk to your AE this time. It's all good. So to give everybody a little bit of context, you might be familiar that. There we go. That was not working. You will be familiar that we actually GA Lightning Web Components last release. And for the ones that you're not in the latest and greatest, Lightning Web Components is our new programming model, sits side by side with Aura. And we build it fundamentally in 3 pillars. Standard base, basically engineer for performance, and optimize for developer productivity, right? And we're going to get drill a little bit more into that. And so I'm going to give a little bit more extra context into why exactly we create Lightning Web Components and why we're making it open source and where do we believe the value is. So 2 years ago, we asked most of you, or a lot of you, what are the problems you guys had in platform? What are the things that you guys wanted? What can we alleviate some of the pain, excuse me. And so we hear pretty loud and clear a couple of main topics, right? Which was fundamentally you want something standard. There was no Salesforce proprietary because you wanted to really transfer the skills that you have from other frameworks or just JavaScript in general, right? And basically you wanted to be backward compatible, forward compatible. You wanted to basically write once and deploy everywhere and just not only in Salesforce. And and performance was good. It has to be really good, right? So we kind of took a step back and tried to figure it out. How can we accomplish all of these things by building something new, right? And we realized something after done a lot of research, that our platform was actually really, really close to the web platform, right? The native web platform. Basically, the web has been here for many decades and it hasn't been broken anybody, more or less. And it's been backward compatible, but also evolving, right? And that was a huge principle that was for us really, really at the core of it. And also the evolving, and also the ability to just use those native APIs and being standard. And so to give a perspective, what that means is at its core, we chose web components, right? Web components are a set of APIs that are native to the browser that allow you to build native components, like a video or canvas, right? Like native, close to the metal. And again, that brings you the interoperability, the future-proof, and backward compatibility, right? Basically, the more aligned with the standard, the more future-proof you are. And so the problem with those APIs are very powerful, but they're very low level, right? So what you can see on the screen is basically just how you write a very simple web component with the vanilla APIs. And as you can see, it's quite verbose, right? We're doing something simple, but there is a lot of code, there's a lot of boilerplate. So we wanted to improve that. We want the ergonomics to be better. And so that is kind of where LWC comes in. So Lightning Web Components think about a sugar layer around these native web standard APIs, right? And that brings a number of things. For example, there's APIs that they're not quite ready. For example, the accessibility APIs, we're working with standards to get them there. So we fixed that for you in the meantime, right? Of course, there's our friend I11, right? We all need to support I11, so we need to make it work in I11. So all of that is what LWC does. The performance, the security, all of that is what LWC brings. And our goal is to make that layer as thinner as the native browser evolves and all the APIs are available. On top of that, well, first, this is kind of what it looks like. Again, there's nothing we invented, there's nothing proprietary here, it's just, again, sugar on top. You can see here we're using EX6 modules, we're using ES6 classes, we're using public fields, and basically all of the features that you know and love. This is just JavaScript, but the same applies for HTML, and the same applies for CSS, right? Now, at Salesforce, we love metadata. And so we also wanted to build in the system the way to bring all of this metadata in a standard way, right? So again, all of the builders that we have, the ability to do more offline, preload things, preload the data that you're gonna need, it's all about this metadata, right? So we build, again, all of this foundation, making sure and making aware of this metadata is something that we can just know what your component is doing. How does it look like? Well, again, it's just standard JavaScript. We use basically static imports to basically, for example, here, fetch a label, fetch a field, declare that we need some data from a UI API. And again, it's all standard, but again, it's bringing that richness and bringing that metadata that allows us to do a lot of things at build time, right? And especially at build time and design time. And on top of that, we have basically the context, right? Your component has to be running in an application somewhere. So you need to bring sometimes things like navigation, routing, figure out which form factor you are. So that was part of also LWC. And that was basically what we GA last release, right? So all of that we made on the platform. But from the beginning, we knew that we just didn't want to stop there with LWC. When we embarked in this journey a couple of years ago with the team, we knew that we can do much, much better, much bigger, embracing the standards, right? And so what that means really is that what if we actually open source all the things that we do, right? What if we open source the engine and everything? So it brings a lot of interesting possibilities, right? Which is you just can use whatever you're used to, right? Think about, and by the way, of course, that's what we deliver now. But think about this, if you're used to Webpack or Rollup or just testing ingest or using Prettier or ESLint, or just you want to run on Heroku or CircleCI or Jenkins or what have you, now you can, right? You can use the tools you know and love or you're an expert in and just build your LWC on top of that, right? And there's countless examples that we can talk, and there's some examples later, but that's the power of bringing LWC to the open source. It's just not our Salesforce ecosystem, but the whole developer ecosystem, right? And also, it helps us drive the platform forward, right? So we believe that making it open source, it will basically extend the utility or extend your capabilities as a developer, not only at Salesforce, but everywhere else, right? Now you can use LWC in every place that you can imagine. On the second aspect, we believe that Salesforce is very well positioned on the specification committees to actually help us bring the enterprise use cases and helping bring your feedback and your use cases to the standard committee so they can end up being standardized and built into the browser. So then again, reducing that layer of LWC going forward. And more importantly, the transparency that we can give you by actually showing you not only the code, but the roadmap, where we're going, and helping us shape and drive what are some of the things that we're doing, and just giving us feedback on the ergonomics or the APIs. Like maybe we're doing something that we think is right, and you can send us a pull request or an issue saying, well, you know what, that doesn't fulfill the use case, and trying to have a dialogue on how we can move forward, right? And that is the fundamental reasons why we believe making it open source is awesome. We're super excited. We've been working really, really hard with the team for almost 3 years now, and we're really excited. So we announced last week the documentation open source, which is in lwc.dev. You can take a look now. We also announced the repository that is open in github.com/Salesforce/LWC, and also the request for comment. Right now, you can actually see what are the features that we're working on and give us feedback, file issues, bring pull requests. You guys already filed some, keep them coming. We love the conversation, and we love to keep you helping us and vice versa, right? And to show you more and exactly what that means, I have Heather here who's going to do this amazing, beautiful demo of how actually all of this works.
All right.
So then, Heather.
All right. Thank you, Diego. So let's dive in to this amazing demo. So where we're going to start is actually the Lightning Web Component open source documentation homepage. So we're at that lwc.dev, just like Diego just mentioned. Now there's two really important things to look at here. On the left-hand side is a quick start set of commands that you can run in your terminal and just get going. Start with a basic app, and we're going to do that in a minute. But before we do that, we're actually going to click this big Get Started button to view a little bit more information about the documentation here. So let's click that. Now if I click on up to installation here, I'm actually taken to a page that looks pretty familiar to me, because I've been working with Lightning Web Components for a couple of months now. Got in a little early to do some pre-release work. And this is really familiar to me because it's the same interface as the other document portal, because it's all Lightning Web Components. So this is really great. And if we can scroll down here, we can actually see once more, those are those simple commands that we can use to get started right now. And we can also scroll down a little bit more, and we'll see that we actually have a brand new sample app called Recipes, which we're going to explore in a few minutes. But this is really cool because I could just clone it from right here in this documentation and get started. Now, before we dive into code too much, I do want to bring your attention up to this cute little icon in the top corner, because this is where things get real. This is actually where we can see Lightning Web Components being open sourced and start contributing. I could start right now and really get those real-time updates as to what's happening in LWC, as well as submit any requests that I might have to fix anything. So this is really cool, really great to get started. And just to see that we've actually made this open source, I'm really, really stoked. So let's actually get hands-on. I have created a little sample app here. I used that basic npx create command that we saw on the earlier screen. And if I go ahead and we can expand here, this is just a really basic introductory application where I've got a couple things going on in my source folder. I have two different Lightning Web Components. I have got a greeting component and an app component. And the app component is the component that I want to take a little bit more of a deep look into. So I'm going to pull up the HTML and the JavaScript. Now the first thing I want to bring your attention to, and let me zoom in a little bit, there we go, is the JavaScript for my app.js file is the exact same as the JavaScript that I would write if I was running this on the platform. So this is huge. All of those skills that I've been learning since the last release are gonna apply right now to developing this off the platform. This is huge. Now let's also take a quick look at that app HTML. I've got some basic greetings here, and it's got a slow speed. So let's actually go ahead and let's run this app. And we'll actually see it live. So I'm building this right now. And now here we go. Here's my application. I'm running Lightning Web Components locally on my machine. And this is actually loading really slow. So I want to speed that up a little bit. Let's go back to the code and change that greeting speed. Let's make it fast. I'm going to save that right here. And because I made sure that I was running this with the watch command, I can go right back to my browser window, and you can see this is already loading so much faster. I'm getting all of those hello greetings at exactly the speed I want, and I was just able to do all of that development right here. This is awesome. Now, I have a few more things that I want to show you, so let's go back to the documentation and take a look at an amazing tab for our community. which is all of you. We're really excited to start collaborating with all of you, and this is the tab where you can go to learn even more and dive in depth onto all of the different forums that we have, as well as check out our sample gallery. So I'm going to actually click down here, click into our sample gallery, and load up the sample gallery page on Trailhead. Now this is a page that's pretty familiar to most of you, I hope, because we've got lots of applications here, but brand new, as of yesterday, we have a recipes open source application right here. So if I click on this, I can actually view this whole application right here on GitHub. And you can see that my lovely colleague Renee has been hard at work recently, making this application ready for you. And so if I wanted to view this application live, I can scroll down to the README and see that it's actually already hosted on recipes.lwc.dev. So here we are, this is recipes, and this is very similar to the recipes application that we launched on the platform earlier this year, except for that this one's running on Heroku. So I can actually go ahead and inspect this, and let's check this out, because there's some new features that are pretty cool. So I'm going to once again zoom in a little bit here, and you can see I have this new custom element that we've defined called UI app. And this is really important. This is where we're actually defining our Lightning Web Component. And then I also have this new tag here that's pretty new to me, but I'm really excited about it, this shadow root. And basically what this means is that we're fully encapsulating all of the style within our Lightning Web Component that we've just created. So if we can see here, there's all of that style, and it's not actually inheriting any of that from any parent nodes. So this is pretty cool, great way to start getting started with all of these things, but I want to show you a little bit more code just because it's really exciting. So let's go ahead. I've got the Lightning Web Component Recipes OSS app downloaded from GitHub here on my machine. And if we expand SRC and modules, you'll actually notice that I have a few more folders than I did in the other app that we created today. I've got a data folder, a recipe folder, and a UI folder. And basically what all of these are the namespaces that we're going to be using. So if we expand the recipe namespace out, you'll actually see that I have a Lightning Web Component recipe for a clock. Let's check out that one. So if I click on that JavaScript, again, just like last time, this would be the exact same JavaScript that I'm using for recipes on the platform as I'm using off the platform. So I don't have to learn anything new, I'm just using all of those skills over again. Where things are a little bit different is actually in the HTML. So here I'm actually using a UI output to display my timestamp, which is awesome that it's a standard component, but it's not the Lightning data, or the Lightning-based component. Lightning-based components aren't available quite yet for open source development. So I had to kind of roll my own and use UI output. All right, I think that's all of the awesome LWC demo for right now. So we'll pass it back to Arabella for some questions.
Wow, so much going on there. And we'll hear so much more from you in a minute about what's new and then the release. But we have a question for you, Diego, from Fernando again.
Fernando's active there.
Sorry, what was that?
Fernando's active there.
So Fernando asks about Lightning Web Components. Is there any reason to not start new projects with just Lightning Web Components without using Aura at all? I guess that means, like, when should I be building in Aura versus Lightning Web Components if I just want to start in Lightning Web Components?
Everyone should be building LWC as of yesterday. No, in general, we recommend that any new development that you have, you start with LWC. We believe that it fulfills all of the use cases. I mean, we have, again, it's battle tested. We have it internally for more than 2 years. And so we believe it's GA and ready to roll, right? So any new development, we really recommend you looking at an LWC. And even for projects that you have that are not performing as well as you want them, or there's some refactor you want to do, we recommend that you start bottom up, changing some of those components, because Aura and LWC can live side to side. So you can start migrating some of those components if you really think that some of the apps need a little bit of extra lifting. But for sure, if you're starting a new project, by all means, use LWC.
Great. So I think, did you want everyone to develop an LWC?
I might be biased, but yes.
Okay, great. So the next question here is, for calling an Apex method, how do you decide between using the wire decorator or imperative ways of accessing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you're having a read API or a read Apex, right, we recommend use wire because, one, you get the reactivity, and also like the cacheability out of the box, and you don't have to really do anything, just wire it there, and it's very declarative, very powerful. Now, if you're using write operations, then you will have to use the imperative API. In either case, try to use UI API when you can, because then we have all the CRUD operations there, and it's all basically based on the UI API. You don't have to take care of really anything imperatively or having to write your own Apex. So prefer UI API if you can, and if you have to write Apex, try to use declarative as much as possible, and if not, the imperative also works just fine.
Okay, great. Thank you. So one final question, I think, before we go to Heather. So everything's open these days. What about the Lightning-based components? Are they open source as well?
Yes, I think as Heather was mentioning right now, we wanted to open source everything, but the components we didn't have enough time, so it's just a matter of time. We're getting there. Pay attention to Twitter and all of our hashtags. It's just a matter of time. We're working very hard to get as many components as we can ready for everybody to use on and off the platform. So we're really excited about that as well.
Yeah, we'll definitely put the word out once everything's open. So, so great. Thank you for that, Diego and Heather. I think, Heather, before we start your segment, there was a comment here, and we couldn't help but notice your shirt. Which is Code Goals. and Squire Kirshner, hey Squire, is saying Code Goals is to be as awesome as Heather Dykstra showing off LWC demos.
Oh,
so.
Well, thank you. But it's really thanks to Diego who helped me figure out what I was supposed to say. So it's a team effort.
So take it away.
All right, cool. So let's talk about a couple of other things. We're going to switch gears now. I have two very different topics. So let's start with mobile. We have just announced Lightning on mobile, and we're really excited about the enhancements that are coming to the Salesforce mobile app in the future. So this is a little bit forward-looking. But the reason I'm bringing it up today is because it's going to unify our user experience across apps and navigation. And most importantly for us as developers, we're actually going to be able to put responsive Lightning components in our record pages and have them show up on mobile. So that's why I wanted to highlight this, because you should be starting to plan your components that you're building with Lightning Web Components towards what is going to look good on both desktop and mobile, because it's coming really soon and we're really excited about it. Now, I also have something else to talk to you about with mobile, and that is our brand new tool, Notification Builder. And this is something you can get your hands on right now, and I'm so excited. It's fully customizable, so I can actually do everything right here in the UI or actually through our REST API, because it's so flexible and easy to use. And greatest of all, it's available on desktop and mobile. Now, this is a really basic screenshot, and I thought it would actually be better to just show you a demo. So let's dive in. So I have a lovely org here. It's a pre-release org. And if I go down on setup, I'll actually see that I have a new thing down here called Notification Builder. And if I click on notification types, I have a brand new UI here where I can actually start setting up notifications. Now, I pre-baked the demo a little bit, so we're actually just going to hit edit just so that we can see this detail a little bit more clearly. I've got a custom notification that I've just defined called case closed, and it's got an API name so that I can call it from Process Builder really simply. And of course, I'm making sure that it's available on both desktop and mobile, because I would hate to just publish this to one place. I want everybody to have the information that they need at exactly the right time wherever they are. So we're going to keep this notification as is, and we're first going to trigger it through Process Builder, and then I'll show you how to make the REST API call. So here I am in Process Builder. I've already done quite a bit of the logic here to trigger it off of case, and when a case is closed, we're going to trigger this new action. But what's new here is the kind of action that we're triggering. We're actually sending a custom notification. So this is brand new, we're really excited about it, and it allows you to quickly fill in all the relevant information that you would want your notification to say. So I've got that this is going to be a case close notification, and I actually want to send this notification not to the owner of the case, but actually to the manager, because what this is helping me replace is all of those crazy chatter posts that we used to automate to tag our managers to let them know when something important was closed. So now I'm just going to send them a push notification so that they can quickly access the information that they need. So the notification title and body are really cool. They're just as dynamic as any other field in Process Builder. I can fill in the information about the relevant record. And then I also want to make sure that the object that we're going to point people to when we send this alert is the right object. So I'm going to say it's the case object that started the process. So let's show that to you in action. I have a case here. Integration user has been set to be user, the main user here, has been set to be the manager of integration user. So when I go ahead and I close this case, I'm going to very quickly, get a notification right up here in this top corner. And so if I click that, you can see this case was just closed. I get the case number, and I also get some details about what was happening. So this is cool, and if we're app builders, which I know I align to, this is awesome. But I'm also a developer, and I want to know how I can trigger this from other services. So I'm going to actually just show you really quick the basic REST API call. And I'm going to use Workbench, but you can use any REST API call to do this. So we're going to use a brand new URL for services called Standard Custom Notification Action. And I'm going to send a basic request body that has a lot of the same things that the last request had in it as well. So I've got my custom notification ID. I've got my recipient ID, which is the person that I want to get the notification. And I could make this a list of people or a queue. There's lots of options here. I'm going to give it a title and a body. So these are the things that are going to show up in the notification. And I'm also going to send it to a specific person. So that is, or it's from a specific record. So that's what this here is. Now, if I was actually writing code, I would want a lot of these to be more dynamic and not hard coded right here. But I just want to show you that it works. So we're going to hit execute. And I'm not logged in. So actually, I'm not going to show you that it works, but I promise you it would have given us this cute little case closed, high priority closed.
Live.
Yay, live demos. And then when you click on that, it takes you to the case that fired the record. So it's pretty cool. All right, so I've got a couple more things to show you, but I have to go back to slides to introduce another new topic.
So much going on in the new release.
So much stuff. It's very exciting. All right, so I have to take a brief moment and give a huge shout out to our CLI team, who's been working really hard to not get us updates with every release, but to actually get us updates every week. So if you check out their update page, sorry, words are hard, you can actually see all of the different things that are happening. And as long as you're running your update command in your CLI, you're going to get all the new features as they're coming. So the features that I'm going to talk about today, some of them have existed for a little while, but you just might not know about it yet. So let's dive in. The first update is better project scaffolding. This one makes me really excited. Basically, if I say force project create with type standard, I get a whole array of folders that I didn't used to get before. So now I don't have to spend time wondering, oh, did I create my classes folder yet? I know that when I created my project, it did that for me. So now I can quickly create Apex or my Lightning Web components, and I don't have to worry about if my project is properly organized to deploy with SFDX. So this is huge. Also new, and really exciting, but kind of in beta right now, is that we can actually create a sandbox from the CLI. This is amazing. This used to take me 4 clicks as an admin and was really annoying. And then after it's done, you have to go and you have to activate it manually. But now we can actually use a quick flag here to auto-activate our sandbox on creation. So now I can fully script out my entire process here for any sort of refreshing of sandboxes and making sure that my developers are using the proper environment for the work that they're doing. I also have the ability to much more simply deploy to any org using source deploy and retrieve. I can now use 3 different ways to actually do this. I can have a manifest with a package.xml, which is pretty familiar to most of us. I could specify a specific source path, or I could name exact metadata or code that I want to push up. So this is really useful, and we're actually going to see this, assuming my demo works, in my demo. So there's a bunch of other cool things that are happening as well. We have more control when we're doing our package installs using Apex compile packages or upgrading and deleting those packages. And we also have a faster view of all of your authorized orgs using auth list instead of just list. So this is huge, lots of cool things happening here. One other shout out, we also have a new Lightning Developer Pro sandbox that's coming up. And it is an enhanced version of the Developer Pro sandbox that will allow for better development and testing support, as well as just faster app development in general, because these sandboxes are going to be able to be cloned within minutes. So if you want more information about this, talk to your AE. So before we answer any questions, I do have one more demo. So let's dive in. So here I am in my lovely org that I've been working in for a little while. And I have 3 sandboxes that I've created. And like I said, we could just create the sandbox right here by hitting New Sandbox, waiting for it to be done, and then hitting Activate. That's a lot of steps. So let's see how simple it is to do this via the CLI. So the first thing I want to do is actually just run my help command on force org create. So you can see here that I actually have the ability now to create a scratch org or a sandbox org. And the way that I define that is actually using this type flag to actually label whether or not it will be a scratch org or a sandbox. So this is cool. And then if I simply run this command down here, force create -t sandbox, and then I give it my JSON file that I have stored specially in my sandbox folder, and then I give it the username that I'm going to run against, it's going to automatically start creating that sandbox for me, and then because of the metadata I set up in my JSON, automatically activate it for me. Now, running this command takes a little while because it still takes a little while to create sandboxes, so I'm actually going to just hop over to a different window, and we're going to do a little bit more extra work here, where we're going to create a new project scaffolding, because it turns out I was just asked to create some new Apex functionality, and I need to do that here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter on this command, and we're going to, just like that, have created a brand new patch for our project that we're working in. And so if I go ahead and I cd into that brand new folder, and I open it up in VS Code, what we're going to see here is that we've got a full proper scaffolding of that entire project, and I can actually go ahead and start writing in anything that I want to in my classes or my Lightning Web Components. Now you can see that this is actually empty because there was nothing for it to pull in. So this is still super neat. We could get hands-on right now. I could create my Apex class, but again, I know we're cutting it a little close to time, and I thought about it a little bit ahead of time, so we're going to go back, and I actually have an R complete folder. So let's go into that to view the full complete set of code that we've written for this particular bug. So then if I go ahead and open that in VS Code, you'll actually see here, I'm getting a couple errors with my jest, sorry about that. But I've got some new things that I'm deploying, and if I click on my package.xml, I've actually specified that I want to specifically deploy these 2 classes. And so I can quickly run a deploy command with my package.xml and deploy that up to my org. So with that, I think my demo is done. And I will now try to answer any questions that you had.
So not so many questions from the audience on this one. So I think it was a super smooth demo. That was great. You went through so much great stuff. I think people are just, basking.
There was a lot to cover.
Yeah. Oh, wait, actually, there is one. Sorry.
Okay.
We have from Jen Lee. Hey, Jen Lee. Finally, Lightning comes to mobile.
Yes, we're really excited about it. And I think with the new updates to notifications as well, it's going to make every interaction absolutely seamless between desktop and mobile.
Right.
And more to come.
And more to come,
Always,
of course.
always. Keep an eye on this broadcast or the internet or like our website. I think, so Heather, thanks for presenting to us here at Salesforce Live. People can see you at an event really soon for developers, right? Do you want to tell us a little bit about where you're up to in July and August?
Yeah, I'm actually headed to Forcelandia, and I'm really excited because it's my first time at Forcelandia, and I will be talking a little bit about the project that I just finished for Trailhead DX. So I worked on Robotics Ridge at Trailhead DX, and I will be talking about how you can use platform events to, high volume platform events, to actually communicate to external systems leveraging MuleSoft and a bunch of other technologies to make a little robot demo happen. So it's pretty exciting.
It all comes together.
All comes together.
Oh, we've got another question coming in hot here. So it's from the community. Will developers be able to enable Dev Hub within a sandbox? It seems I can't deploy a Lightning Web Component without doing so. So who wants to grab that question?
Well, technically, you can deploy LWC pretty much anything that is GA, which is services, sales, communities, I believe Lightning Out. I don't know if it's beta or... So I don't know about the board. You should be able to deploy it pretty much in any org, as far as I know.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can enable Dev Hub in a sandbox. I don't want to answer the question because I don't want to be wrong. So I will go research it and make sure that we get you the right answer.
Great, and we'll get back to the people in the community on that one.
For sure.
Great. So I think I think people are really excited to see you at Forcelandia, but I think we're all just also recovering from Trailhead DX, right? So I want to thank you all again for just like coming to this preparing for this broadcast and these live questions. I think we're still basking in Trailhead DX. What were some of your favorite sessions from the event? Like, I think either you were speaking at or that you think other developers should keep an eye out for the session recordings for.
I'll start.
Oh, yeah.
I did a theater presentation on async apex triggers, and it was absolutely packed. It was a few people deep, and I'm not trying to brag, but it's evident that people are very excited about this brand new platform concept with async apex triggers. So it was great to see the community really embracing that idea and really engaging in the thought process around like how much can I pull out of my transactional apex? Because we all know that transactions we want to minimize as much as we can. And now that we have that capability baked in natively with the platform, it really allows you to do that very seamlessly and natively. And then, secondarily, the robotics ridge seeing with platform events was super cool because I had no idea Heather was even building that. But then I walk over and I get a little demo and she's like, oh, platform events. And I'm like, oh, this is so cool because all the robots are communicating, using high volume platform events.
That's great. Go ahead.
We actually are releasing a video on Twitter very soon. I have to finish editing it so that anyone that wasn't at Trailhead DX can actually see that live.
That's great. That's really great.
That'll be great. So anyone, Rodolfo, do you have any?
Yes, well, so I guess the keynote was in terms of blockchain, that was really important for us, and I have a few pictures of Parker and the big blockchain screen behind him. So definitely that one. There's ASU, IQVIA, SNP, all of those are design partners that presented. And it was really amazing presentations, and we've got a lot of really good feedback, and even like attendees pinging the presenters. So we've been receiving some of that information. So if there's a chance to watch some of those, I would highly recommend it.
For sure, and that video is available right now if people want to check that out. And we have a bunch of really good trail mixes that are linked to that as well. That was a lot of letters, so just to point out, ASU was Arizona State University,
yes,
not like a new technology.
Right, correct. Sorry. Need to watch it with acronyms.
The TLA issue. Diego, how about you?
Well, there was a lot of talks on TrailDX about Lightning Web Components. I can certainly recommend some from the team. There was a really good talk talking about TypeScript and how you can enable TypeScript from Pierre-Marie and David Turicini. Check that one out. It was packed as well. And the other really good one about testing and LWC kind of going towards the open source from Rainier and Trevor. Also, I would recommend checking those two guys. They're both packed and they were really well received. And again, hit us with issues, pull requests, and you name it, we'll get to it. So.
Great, that's great to hear. Robotics Ridge.
All robots, all the time. But if I was to give a shout out to a session, I know Zane and Renee did an amazing co-op session. I don't know what it was called, but it was a lot of fun.
It's called the Zane and Renee Show.
Oh, it's literally called the Zane and Renee Show, so there you go. That easy. But they talk a lot about how you can get started with collaboration and using VS Code and how you can even collaborate across time zones. And so that's definitely a session that if you're struggling with that, which I know I struggle with sometimes, that would be a good thing to go check out.
Great, so thank you all. So one thing I do want to mention before we wrap up is one thing we're all really excited to share is we have something starting today called The More You Know. I feel like I always have to do that hand gesture. But it's something that we're doing because there's so many admins that are interested in developer topics, and so many developers that just want to make their lives easier by using the same kind of tools that admins use every day. We have this great way of getting the word out about what is in this new release to everybody. And if you want to check out either the hashtag Buildspiration or check out the short code sforce.co/buildspiration, you can check out what's happening there. So what it is you can sign up and follow a Trailhead Trail Mix, right? And then what happens is every day there will be a blog post written by admins or developers. Heather, I think you're writing one too. I think we have one on Apex Async Triggers as well. So you'll just get to have a deeper dive into the topics that are good in the release, in addition to what's been shared today. And the great thing is, if you go go through this trail mix, we're actually giving back by donating $10 to a nonprofit called FIRST. And FIRST is helping kind of educate youth internationally about STEM topics. So if you want to kind of learn what's going on in the new release, and if you want to like help everybody else learn about technology and the sciences in general, I highly suggest you check out sforce.co/buildspiration, or just check out that hashtag on Twitter. So once again, before we wrap up, I just wanted to thank you all. This has been a great presentation by all of you, and I'm looking forward to sharing this recording to everybody. So thank you all so much for joining. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting us.
Thanks for joining today.
Bye.
Thank you.